Revealed, Secrets of a Haunted Nevada Prison, 7 Sinister Rules You Must Never Break. The wind howled through the cracks of the old house, a shriek that sent Sarah's heart racing. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, sending a cold sweat trickling down her spine. She looked out the window toward the abandoned prison, its dark silhouette looming against the moonlight. The townsfolk whispered of the ghosts that roamed its grounds. 7 rules, they claimed, governed the living and the dead. Breaking one could lead to horrors far worse than anyone imagined at first. The charm of the town drew her in. Neighbors bearing homemade pies and warm smiles promised new beginnings, but Sarah could feel the undercurrent, a darkness that tangled with laughter, thick as fog. When the sun dipped low, the quiet settled like a shroud, broken only by ghostly whispers clawing at her sanity. They spoke from the prison's depths, chilling stories of lives lost in locked cells. No matter how hard she tried to shake it off, a gnawing dread crept into her bones. Her husband's night shifts deepened her fears, leaving her alone with 2 restless children while she wrestled with creeping shadows and echoing voices. Reports of missing locals were pinned on the walls of the diner like grotesque trophies, and the sheriff, a tall man with a too-wide grin, dismissed her worries like a bad joke. "Ghost stories," he said, contempt lacing his words. "Don't let 'em catch you with your fears, ma'am." Fear gripped her tighter day by day as she glimpsed figures out of the corner of her eye, tall, dark shapes crouching at the edge of the yard, staring back through the glass with hatred and hunger. Breath caught in her throat, she felt the weight of unseen eyes. They were watching. Always watching. Desperate, she found solace in Mabel, the elderly woman whose deep-set eyes told secrets of their own. They sipped coffee together in the fading light, Mabel's voice a thread of tranquility amidst the chaos. But when Sarah asked about the prison, Mabel's smile faltered. She leaned in, her breath a whisper, 7 rules, dear. 7 you never want to break. Tension coiled in the air as Mabel revealed the rules, each more chilling than the last. When she recounted the stories tied to them, Sarah's blood ran cold. The townsfolk flinched at the mention of the rules, lives woven together by threads of fear, a tapestry stained with the shadows of the prison's past. Each break invited an entity, a ghost that came to collect its due. As curiosity birthed dread within her, Sarah recalled the hooded figure lurking outside, witnessed for weeks. It felt like a primal instinct, the need to fight or flee. The sound of the prison sirens shattered the stillness one night, an ominous call to embark on a path of truth. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That fateful night, with her heart pounding against her ribs, Sarah stole from her warm house, compelled by unseen strings leading her toward the prison. Each step toward the rotting gates felt like a leap into madness. The moonlit ground shifted beneath her, and just outside of the shadows, the figure emerged, an echo of herself, eyes reflecting the same fear that gripped her tightly. Reality blurred, and in that horrifying moment, Sarah stood frozen in terror. Had she become the very nightmare she sought to escape? With the truth edging closer, one question twisted her insides: could she uncover the prison's dark legacy, or would she too fall victim to its sinister rules? Time froze as the echo of her own face loomed, a portent of doom that thrummed like a heartbeat, and the chilling reality of her situation loomed larger than ever, threatening to consume her whole. The figure bore down on her, an inescapable force, yet it did nothing but loom. Sarah's breath quickened, a wild animal caught in a snare of panic. The night air thickened, smothering her thoughts as it twisted together her fear and confusion. "Sarah," it hissed, the voice a haunting echo of her own. It was her name, but twisted, gnawed at by malevolence. Every hair on her body stood on end, and adrenaline flooded her veins. She turned to flee, but the darkness coiled around her legs like vines, dragging her back toward the prison's maw. The ground pulsed beneath her, a heartbeat echoing through the earth. With every step, shadows shifted, darting around her, mocking her with whispers of the rules long forgotten by time. "You're breaking them," they seemed to chant, their laughter cold and chilling. Desperation churned inside her. She thought of her children, innocent, unaware, asleep in their beds. The thought propelled her forward, but the figure blocked her path. It raised a hand, fingers pointed like skeletal daggers. Sarah's heart raced. "What do you want?" she yelled into the abyss. "Join us," it replied, its voice a twisted siren, echoing through the trees, sifting into her mind. The plea was accompanied by visions, faces wreathed in despair, men and women chained to the prison's walls, stripped of their humanity. She could feel their anguish clawing at her soul, begging for release. "No!" she screamed, an instinct screaming through her limbs. In that moment, she understood the terror that cloaked this place. She was standing on the edge of a chasm, staring into the void that awaited all who broke the rules. The thought tugged at her, a heavy shroud that threatened to pull her deeper into despair. From somewhere within the recesses of her horror, a single thought flickered, one crucial rule that might save her: do not look back. She gripped it like a lifeline, pushing past the figure as she forced one foot in front of the other, sprinting toward the prison entrance. The night seemed to dissolve around her, the shadows melting into an array of tortured souls, soaring and stretching as if to grasp at her heels. The rusted gates creaked open, revealing the cold dark. A world she had only glimpsed through tales and rumors. But she couldn't stop. An electric pull urged her forward, each step a battle against growing dread. The prison's walls towered above, blotting out the moonlight, creating a web of terror. Inside, the shadows twisted like half-formed nightmares, oozing through cracks and crevices. The air was thick and musty, the scent of decay and time. Whispers slithered up her spine, echoing the stories of broken souls. She stumbled, gasping when she saw them, the tortured spirits, faces pressed against the darkened bars, eyes wide with longing and despair. Their mouths moved soundlessly, stitched shut, screaming to her without a sound. An energy pulsed around her, a swirl of sorrow that threatened to drown her. "Break the rules," they desperately beckoned, "join us," but in the chaos, an urge ignited within her. Break free. She remembered Mabel's words: 7 weren't just rules, they were lifelines to recognize. She felt the overwhelming weight of her choice amid the swirling spirits, her pulse roaring in her ears. Just before she could set her feet on a path away from the clutches of the prison, the shadows coalesced into a solid form, a guard, his face twisted in a grimace of rage. "You shouldn't be here," he bellowed, the sound echoing through the hallways with a finality that sent chills through her bones. Heart racing, Sarah turned to flee, but as her legs carried her through the darkness, the walls pulsated like a heart, seemingly alive, breathing malevolence. The whispers grew louder, drowning out her frantic thoughts. Suddenly, she tripped and fell onto the cold floor, the sound of chains clinking nearby echoing in her ears. "No! You can't leave!" As the world around her shifted and wavered, Sarah felt the prison's energies coiling tighter, urging her to remain, to join the countless lost souls forever shackled to its ominous fate. In the growing darkness, a piercing thought, the realization that maybe she already had broken a rule. As the shadows closed in, she strained to remember, had she given her fear power, or had she lifted the veil on the truth buried beneath? The prison loomed with a hungry silhouette behind her, its skeletal hand reaching out. Would she succumb to the terror, or could she escape before it claimed her? In the stillness, just above the whispers, came a chilling question: what if she wasn't alone in this battle for sanity? The shadows shifted again, more restless than ever, and a different voice, one far more familiar than the others, whispered, "Sarah, don't you remember?" The weight of the echoes pressed against her mind, tightening the grip of dread as the darkness threatened to swallow her whole. A sharp chill clawed at Sarah's skin as she lay sprawled on the cold floor. The prison felt alive beneath her, trembling as if anticipating her next move. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding like a war drum, and glanced toward the shadows creeping ever closer. "Don't you remember?" The whisper drifted from the darkness, a thread of familiarity weaving through her panic. It gnawed away at her resolve, but she forced herself to drown it out. Panic surged within her, igniting every nerve ending. She had to escape. Yet, she couldn't help but feel drawn to those familiar words. The air crackled with energy as the guard stepped closer, his form looming larger, an embodiment of rage against her defiance. "You think you can leave? Don't you get it?" His voice became a low growl, and in that moment, Sarah felt the weight of her fears rise up, a chorus of despair sharpening the air. "You're choosing to break the seventh rule," he bellowed, as sinister shadows coalesced behind him. "You must pay the price." With the floor trembling, Sarah felt an icy finger of realization trace her spine. The seventh rule, the one she dared not recall. Her mind raced, piecing fragments together in a desperate scramble. Never question the roots of your dread. It hit her like a brick, the power of fear could bind or free. "No. I want," she screamed, her voice roaring against the shadows. As if sensing her defiance, the prison walls echoed her scream, amplifying her defiance, and the shadows shrieked, twisting with agony at her words. The guard lunged forward, but Sarah pivoted, eyes scanning for a way out. She could see it now, an old door, slightly ajar, beckoning her like a beacon of hope. The bewitching whispers rose like a tide, drowning out her thoughts. "Stay with us, join us," each word felt like razor blades, full of seduction and despair, pushing her toward the edge. But she thought of her children again, the warmth of their small hands, their laughter echoing in her mind. Fueled by that love, she sprinted toward the door, smashing through the darkness, the shadows clawing at her heels, hungry for her surrender. She felt their icy breath brush against her skin, whispering sweetly of surrender, and then an electric shock of rage surged within her. Just as she reached for the doorknob, a piercing scream cut through the air, freezing her in place. It was chilling, unmistakable, and unmistakably familiar. Her heart sank as she recognized it. "Sarah! Help me!" The voice was her daughter's. A truth more terrifying than the shadows ripped through the night. She hadn't just broken a rule, she had endangered her own flesh and blood. Crisis twisted into clarity. A choice loomed before her: escape for herself or risk everything to save her child. "Mom!" The voice cried again, filled with desperation. Time hung still. Fear rippled through her, but this time it ignited a different fire, the gut-wrenching fury of a mother faced with horror. She turned back, steeling herself against the walls that felt like they were closing in. Shadows spiraled like wraiths, their laughter a twisted lullaby. But she was more than fear, she would fight. Pushing past the voices trying to pull her under, she ran deeper into the prison's maw, knowing now that the true battle was just beginning. "Where are you?" she screamed into the suffocating dark. Suddenly, an answer echoed off the damp stone walls, chilling her to her core. "You need to find the heart of the prison, only then can you save her." The urge to follow that haunting echo drove her, deeper and deeper into the labyrinth of despair. But uncertainty crawled at her insides. What awaited her at the heart? Would it reveal the truth she couldn't bear, or was it the dark core of a nightmare that would pull them into eternal gloom? With shadows closing in and time racing, Sarah's feet pounded down the corridor, an inexorable march toward the unknown, grasping at the flicker of hope that shimmered just out of reach. Would she find her daughter in time, or would the prison claim both their souls? Walls closed in as Sarah plunged deeper into the dark heart of the prison. Cold stone pressed against her, suffocating hope with a sinister embrace. The whispers turned frantic, rising and falling like waves crashing toward her resolve. It felt as if they wrapped around her throat, squeezing tighter with each heartbeat. Find her, they hissed, a chant amplifying the pulse of fear in her veins. Rounding a corner, she faced a pitch-black corridor that seemed to stretch into infinity. The air felt charged, a thick humidity wrapping around her limbs. With each step forward, an invisible weight settled upon her shoulders, heavy and relentless, as if the prison itself breathed with sinister intentions. "Your daughter is lost," a voice purred, its soft timbre tainted with cruelty. "You ventured here, breaking the seventh rule, but can you truly save her?" "Shut up," she rasped, desperation fueling her energy. The walls seemed to vibrate at her shout, shadows writhing in response. Yet, glimpses of light flickered ahead, pulling her closer. The promise of escape, or was it a trap? She pushed aside the gnawing doubt. Fear was a liar, and she couldn't afford to listen. Swallowing a chill creeping down her spine, she lunged forward, arms flailing through the darkness. Thud. She slammed into something solid. A door? Heart racing, she fumbled for the handle, her fingers trembling. "Help me, Mommy." The voice, pure and desperate, shot through the suffocating blackness, raising the hair on her arms. "Hold on, sweetie," Sarah cried, battling the remnants of the prison trying to siphon her away. Panic clawed at her throat as she twisted the knob, the heavy wood creaking in protest. The door swung open, revealing a dimly lit room cloaked in shadows. What lay within the heart of the prison yawned invitingly, a cavernous maw waiting to swallow her whole. Inside, a stark contrast dimmed the heavy oppression of the prison, a soft glow pulsed rhythmically across the walls, painted in swirling colors that felt familiar yet cruelly distant. The sight momentarily seized her breath. It was an illusion of peace, planted like false hope in the ruins of despair. Then, she saw her daughter. Tied to a large, intricate wheel, the child's eyes glimmered with tears that mirrored Sarah's own. The sight of her, vulnerable and trapped, snapped the elastic thread of fear that bound Sarah. "Mommy!" the girl cried, her voice cracking through the veil of shadows. But in that moment, a terrible laughter resonated from all corners of the room, echoing off the walls. The shadows coalesced into grotesque forms, shifting and laughing, hungry for their prize. "Turn back, little mother," they intoned, 1,000 voices intertwined in a chilling symphony. "You shouldn't have come here." "Enough!" Sarah shouted, building her strength on the foundation of fear. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and her heart seized. "Only an offering will save her," the guard's voice, dripping with malice, emerged from the depths of the darkness. "Your flesh will fuse into the prison, feeding its heart." Bile rose in Sarah's throat. "Offering? No!" She screamed, desperation propelling her towards her daughter, but the shadows surged forward, creating a barrier of dread. "Choose." They writhed, each movement like a serpent coiling tighter around her resolve. "Choose between your life and hers." Time stood still. The room spun as fears of mothers past encircled her, their cries mingling with her own heart-wrenching resolve. Would she sacrifice herself to save her child, or was there a way to fight against the very darkness that fed upon their anguish? The shadows pressed closer, voices hissing in unison. "What will you offer?" As Sarah's gaze met her daughter's shimmering eyes, a flicker of determination ignited within her. Would she muster the strength to defy even death itself, or would the shadows claim both of them in eternal darkness? The chilling laughter surged again as Sarah's heart teetered at the brink of despair, and she realized that in the depths of sacrifice lay her greatest trial. The shadows surged forward, an inky tide that smothered every flicker of hope Sarah clung to. Panic seized her. She felt the darkness curling around her wrists, tightening like a vice. Breaths came fast, jagged. In the eye of horror, her daughter's eyes glistened like diamonds, holding a pleading spark, urging her to act. "Please, Mommy." A fresh wave of despair turned Sarah's bones to lead. The grotesque laughter echoed through the chamber, warping the reality around them, mocking her resolve. "An offering, your flesh," the shadows whispered, inching closer as if tasting her fear. "No." Sarah's voice sliced through the cacophony, ripping free from her throat. Suddenly, something inside her snapped. Love surged through the terror, igniting a fire that pushed against the cold. You hear me? I refuse. With every ounce of willpower, she charged forward, arms raised. Shadows writhed and recoiled as her determination struck them like sunlight breaking through thick fog. She could feel the heat surrounding her, rising with each pulse of defiance. Mommy. I'm scared. I'm here. She called back, her spirit burning fiercely against the encroaching dark. But the shadows only laughed harder, taunting her efforts with pitiless glee. The grotesque forms began to shift, merging into the faces of lost souls, their mouths moving in silent screams, their eyes hollow and desperate, imploring her to succumb to the darkness. Join us, Sarah, they murmured, their voices harmonizing into a wicked lullaby. You can be free forever, get out of my head. She screamed, clutching at her temples as the ghostly whispers clawed into her consciousness, testing her sanity. But she forced herself to refocus on that shimmering gaze of her daughter. The wheel groaned, its intricate design seeming ancient and filled with a life of its own, almost laughing at her struggle as it turned slightly, teasing the fragile threads of her daughter's bindings. Let her go. With a roar, Sarah lunged towards the wheel, the shadows spawning forward to ensnare her. As they wrapped around her ankles like chains, she kicked at them with unyielding ferocity. Your sacrifice is necessary. They hissed, wrapping tighter around her throat. Not today. The words erupted from her in a primal scream. In that moment of defiance, she felt a pulse echoing within the very walls of the prison, as if they reacted to her rage. Light flared vividly through the cracks of the darkness, illuminating the grotesque figures. Their faces twisted in pain as they retreated, momentarily stunned. Run! She called, her heart wild. I'll get you out of here. But the shadows surged back faster, a flood of anger and wrath determined to crush her spirit. You think you can break the cycle? They shrieked, madness compounding in their laughter. This prison hungers for you both. The wheel turned again, and this time, Sarah could see the threads binding her daughter begin to unravel. The sinister charm was breaking. Don't look away. She commanded, eyes locked on her daughter's trembling form. Focus on me. As the shadows flared in fury, she felt a force rising through her. Memories of laughter, warmth, and love burst against the encroaching darkness. Suddenly, she understood how to fight back. You want flesh? She spat, her chest heaving. I'll give you my soul instead. In that split second, a blinding light erupted around her, enveloping both mother and daughter. The shadows shrieked in terror, recoiling as the light expanded, threatening to eradicate the darkness surrounding them. But even as the walls trembled, Sarah felt the ground beneath her quaking. Mommy, her daughter's voice broke through the chaos, fear clouding her face. Before Sarah could respond, a thunderous growl emanated from deep within the prison, shaking the very foundation around them. It seemed to beckon her back, the malevolence stretching its shadowy fingers with renewed vigor. Do you really think you can escape? The whispers slithered back, more insistent, more desperate. Your choice has brought you deeper than you can imagine. The pulse of light flickered, nuances of darkness creeping back in. Stay close. Sarah yelled, just as the glowing barrier began to wane, flickering ominously like an old bulb about to die. Was this sacrifice only the beginning? Would they face a fate worse than death? As the prison's hunger roared louder in response to her refusal, Sarah tried to hold on to her daughter, feeling the weight of despair pressing down again. Together! She shouted, as the light began to flicker, and the shadows rushed in like a tidal wave. What price would she pay for her child's freedom? One thing became clear, the true battle was just beginning. The darkness surged back, relentless and ravenous. Sarah could feel it clawing at her sanity, the oppressive weight pushing her down, threatening to drown her. With a sharp intake of breath, she tightened her grip on her daughter's hand, feeling the warmth of her small palm against the frigid air. "Hold on, baby. Don't let go." The shadows laughed, a cacophony of twisted glee. "Together? You'll only drag her down with you." They screeched, the air vibrating with their malice. The light, that brilliant beacon of hope, flickered again, dimming with every passing second. Panic knotted in her stomach, she could see the malicious shadows lurching closer, searching for weakness. "No! I won't let this happen!" Sarah roared, her voice trembling but fierce, driven by the instinct to protect her child. Suddenly, a powerful surge coursed through her, a pulse of energy that felt alive. Memories flooded her mind, her daughter's laughter, the feel of her tiny body curled against her at night, stories shared in hushed tones before bed. With each recollection, warmth began to form, growing in her chest, igniting something buried deep within. "Release her!" Sarah bellowed, thrusting her hands toward the encroaching shadows. She could feel the light breaking through her fingertips, dazzling and potent. The darkness recoiled, but it wasn't enough. "Offer yourself." The whispers hissed, echoing menacingly in her ears. "Abandon the child. You know the truth, no. I won't trade her for anything." The defiance surged through her like a storm, resonating with the remaining shards of light. It crackled in the air, and beneath it, she began to decipher the grotesque laughter of the shadows. It was the sound of something familiar, something she once loved that had twisted into this malevolent form. The prison seemed to shudder again, the walls groaning as if they, too, were alive. Her eyes darted around, trying to find the source of the thunderous growl that filled the air once more. The echoes echoed with taunts, revealing the realities of those lost to the same darkness. "Mommy," her daughter quivered beside her. "I'm scared." A pang of guilt slashed through Sarah. Was her defiance worth putting her daughter in danger? "Trust me," she urged, holding her gaze steady. "I'll find a way out for both of us." But with every word, the shadows surged closer. The figures shifted and morphed, their faces beginning to take familiar shapes, neighbors, friends, even family members, all twisted in agony. They reached out with accusing fingers, whispering false promises of love mingled with desperation. Join us, they beckoned seductively. "Leave her alone." Sarah shouted, the pulse deep within her growing another inch brighter, battling against the grasp of despair. But doubt was rising like a tide, threatening to swamp her determination. What if she couldn't protect her daughter? What if her fight only put them in greater peril? With a sudden surge, she tore her eyes away from the shadows and focused on the wheel. It beckoned to her with its ancient promise, its intricate web still glowing, still somehow alive. "If I can just reach," she thought. As she took a step forward, a scream split the air, visceral and raw. It came from her daughter. "Mommy!" She spun around. The light flickered rapidly, casting shadows that flickered erratically, illuminating her daughter's wide, terrified eyes. The wheel spun, and a new entanglement of shadows bound around Sarah's daughter, knitting impossibly tight. "No!" Sarah screamed, panic surging through her. She lunged, but the shadows had become a quicksand pulling her deeper. The malevolence wrapped tighter around her daughter, and the wheel began its turn once more, sucking them both in. "Fight! Don't give in!" A shuddering voice echoed in the chamber, and for a split second, Sarah thought she recognized it. Was it her own? As her heart raced, she braced herself. In that moment, courage born from love filled her. "I will never let you take her." But the shadows roared back. "You will witness pain. You will watch her suffer." Desperation clawed at her throat as she pushed against the encroaching horror, illuminated memories flashing before her. What could she sacrifice to save her daughter? Moments stretched, time felt elastic. With one last burst of light, she screeched, "I am her mother." The shadows froze for the briefest of moments, bearing witness. But a twist of fate loomed just outside of sight, and Sarah felt a new swell of terror building. Would her identity be enough to vanquish the darkness, or was there more yet to uncover in this labyrinth of souls? In that misty lilt of power hung a question, tantalizing and unfathomable: what would become of them both in the end? The roar of the shadows echoed in her ears, drowning out her thoughts as Sarah fought against the unyielding grip that threatened to consume her. She could scarcely breathe, the darkness seemed to wrap around her throat, tightening with each desperate gasp. Her heart pounded, and terror surged through her. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice cut through the chaos like a sharp knife. "I'm scared." The chorus of voices from the shadows twisted into a maddening wail, pulling at the frayed edges of Sarah's resolve. "Look at her. You will watch her suffer," they taunted. "You're too weak to save her." Shaking, Sarah glanced back at her daughter, who was now encased in a shroud of writhing darkness. It encircled her like a serpent, tightening and loosening, but it was the gaze in her daughter's eyes that sent a jolt of determination into Sarah's veins. There was fear there, but also trust. "Hold on. I'm coming." With a deep breath, fueled by instinct and sheer will, Sarah dived into the fray of shadows. She could feel their coldness biting into her skin as she pushed against the constricting mass. She imagined pulling her daughter free, the two of them escaping together into the light. In that moment, the will pulsed and throbbed with renewed energy, as if resonating with their struggle. "Do you think you can save her?" The shadows hissed, voices warping into a twisted mix of sighs and laughter. "You cannot even save yourself." But she wasn't alone. Sarah felt a strange warmth spread through her, a connection to something unbreakable. Memories danced in her mind, not just of her daughter, but of every time she had fought for love, for family. With each recollection, she pushed back harder against the darkness. "Let her go!" she yelled, every ounce of bravery cracking her voice. The shadows shrieked, and for a heartbeat, they hesitated. The moment stretched and then snapped. Bright, piercing light surged from Sarah, illuminating the cavernous space. The shadows recoiled, their forms distorting under the weight of her resolve. In that second, she saw her daughter's face, and the light glinted off her eyes so innocently vibrant. "Yes. Hold on to me!" Sarah screamed, reaching through the shadows, finally breaking their grasp. Her fingers brushed against the cool, soft skin of her child's hand. For a fleeting moment, her grip was secure, but at the same time, tendrils of darkness latched onto her, desperate to reclaim their prey. The darkness surged forward, a tide of pure malice. The screams of the lost echoed louder now, drowning out all reason. "You think you can defy us? You think love conquers all?" Nothing made sense anymore. But deep within her, a core of strength burned. Love is the most powerful weapon. Sarah screamed back, her voice reverberating through the gloom, pushing against the shadows as she clutched her daughter's hand with fierce determination. The shadows twisted and shrieked, shadows of her own family now thrashing, lashing out in accusation. Faces of those she had lost appeared and disappeared in grotesque mockery. The fear and guilt settled in her heart again. They had once known her, had once loved her. Now, where were they? "Mommy," her daughter whimpered, tremors running through her small body. Sarah could feel it, the darkness was hungry, ready to consume them both, ready to pull them into the abyss. She squeezed her daughter's hand tighter, drawing strength from her. "I won't abandon you." In that instant, as the shadows lunged, a flicker of the wheel began to pulse like a heartbeat. Sarah felt her heart sink with it, the rhythm sending waves through her entire being. Together. As the dark mass split, revealing a path of light, Sarah surged forward. The malicious laughter fractured into terrified howls as the darkness screamed. Just when escape seemed within reach, a chilling thought struck her: what if this path only led to another entrapment? As the shadows snatched at them from behind, Sarah's eyes locked onto the shimmering light ahead. Would it lead to freedom, or deeper into the nightmare? "Mommy!" her daughter screamed, eyes wide. with fear as they trembled forward. But the wheels twisted again, revealing a horrifying truth. Could they truly escape, or would they become yet another pair of lost souls trapped in a prison of horrors? The moment they burst into the light, it felt like stumbling into a harsh, fluorescent reality. The scream of shadows faded into an eerie silence, broken only by the frantic beating of Sarah's heart. She pulled her daughter closer, scanning the unfamiliar landscape. Cold steel walls surrounded them, stretching infinitely a grid of cells, each one seemingly unoccupied yet echoing a lingering sorrow. This was not just an escape, it felt like they had crossed into a different realm. "Where are we?" her daughter whispered, wide-eyed. Sarah couldn't answer, fear twisted in her gut. Shouldn't they be free? Hadn't they fought enough? A distant echo of metal clanging made both of them jump. It was low and rhythmic, reverberating uneasily through the hall. With every clank, Sarah felt a shiver race up her spine. The place had a life of its own, as if the walls were breathing, pulsing with past torments. "Stay close," she instructed, gripping her daughter's hand as they began to move down the corridor. The weight of unseen eyes seemed to press in on them. The cells appeared empty, but she sensed they were not alone. Her instincts screamed. Suddenly, a low growl emanated from within one of the cells, reverberating off the stone walls. Sarah froze, heart hammering. What was that? Her daughter whimpered, clinging tighter to her. She could barely formulate a response. "Just keep walking." Each step felt like a step deeper into a nightmare. As they passed a cell, she glanced in. A shadowy figure slumped against the bars, eyes hollow and vacant. It was a person maybe once lost to an unnameable sorrow. The air thickened, stifling. The further they went, the more disoriented she felt, as if the space around them was twisting, changing. The growling echoed again, closer this time, reverberating like a warning. Panic clutched at her throat. They needed an exit. "Mommy," her daughter trembled. "I don't want to be here." "Me neither," Sarah admitted, forcing a smile that felt stiff and unnatural. Then, out of the stillness, a whisper snaked through the air, chilling her to the bone. "You shouldn't have come here." It was a woman's voice, laced with grief and malice. Echoes of despair wove through the statement, and Sarah's skin prickled. "What do you want?" Sarah called out, voice trembling as she scanned the dim passageway, searching for the source. "They won't let you go," the voice echoed like a haunting lullaby, lapping at her consciousness. "Who?" Sarah shouted, desperation rising. "Who won't let us go?" The shadows shifted lively, sentient around them. They lunged forward, the whispers growing louder, more desperate. "You must obey the rules." The growling intensified. "What rules?" The voice twisted as if gathering strength. 7 rules. Break them, and your fate becomes theirs. An icy dread swept through her. Only a moment before, it had been terrifying shadows, now they were trapped in a labyrinth of cold darkness. "No, please." Her daughter's grip tightened painfully, the fear evident on her innocent face. "Your daughter," the voice trailed into a shrill laugh, "she's already part of this place." Sarah's breath caught. Tears stung her eyes. "No. I won't let that happen." With resolve, she pressed forward, but the shadows clawed at them, attempting to draw them back into a darkness eager to consume. Heart pounding in her ears, she sensed the truth. Each step deeper was losing herself. "Be still," the emptiness sang, "accept your fate." "No." A scream erupted from her lips. The shadows hesitated, momentarily stunned. She could feel the darkness hunger for her determination to falter. As they reached a large door at the end of the hall, she pulled on the cold handle, praying for escape. Would they find freedom? Or were they merely inviting a more sinister fate? The door creaked open, a gust of icy wind rushing in. Shadows danced before them, taunting, lamenting their plight. As they stepped through, the ground shifted beneath their feet. What lay ahead lurked in deeper darkness. What now? Her daughter's voice whimpered, full of dread. Stay strong. Whatever happens, we fight. But in that moment, as the door swung shut behind them, Sarah's heart sank. The echoes of the shadows coiled tighter, each whisper a reminder of the rules they had yet to learn. What lay beyond could curse them for eternity. The darkness loomed ahead, hungry and alive. What were the 7 sinister rules that would shape their desperate fate? The door slammed shut, the sound reverberating like thunder in the hollow space they now occupied. A suffocating silence engulfed them, broken only by the faint creaking of the door's hinges. Sarah's heart raced, the pulse quickening in her ears, drowning out her own thoughts. It was pitch black ahead, an oppressive weight pressing down. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, scrutinized by malevolent eyes hidden in the dark. Mommy? Her daughter's voice trembled, raw with fear. Where are we? Just a little further, Sarah whispered, forcing herself to act brave. The flicker of a dim light caught her eye, a weak glimmer seeping through the darkness ahead. It beckoned them like a siren's song. With each cautious step, the atmosphere grew denser, more suffocating. The silence morphed into something alive, a tangible presence that coiled tightly around them. Shadows fluttered at the edges of her vision, darting back every time she turned to face them. She grasped her daughter's hand tighter, as if her warmth could stave off the crawling dread. They reached the light, a flickering bulb swinging above what seemed to be an open room, its walls battered and stained. The remnants of what once might have been a gathering place lay strewn about, rotten chairs, splintered tables, rusted metal bars. Even in the dim illumination, a rancid smell seeped into their senses. This place, it smells like death, her daughter whispered, voice barely above a breath. Keep quiet, Sarah hissed, feeling an urge to run. Suddenly, a shudder ran through the floor, rippling up into her bones. She turned toward where they had entered, but the door had vanished entirely. Panic clawed at her throat. What do we do? Her daughter whimpered as her face paled, tears glistening in her wide eyes. Focus on me. Sarah steadied her voice. Remember what the voices said. The rules. We need to learn them before it's too late. As if in response, the air crackled around them, and a low whisper enveloped them once more, vibrating with a dark intensity. To leave, you must understand, the voice echoed, weaving through the room like smoke. The rules must be obeyed. Tell us what they are. Sarah's shout cut through the oppressive silence, desperation eroding her resolve. A cold wind swept through the open space, sending chills down her spine, and the lights flickered erratically. Suddenly, images danced across the walls like ghosts, fractured scenes of desperation and anguish unraveling in a cacophony of trapped souls. Faces contorted in horror flashed before her, flickers of grief, eternal sorrow trapped within stone confines. For must be unbroken, the voice hissed, yet 3 are to be heeded. What does that even mean? Sarah felt a tremor of anger surge through her. What do we have to do? First, the voice droned, low and twisted, never lose the light of hope. Second, never allow fear to claim you. Third, do not separate from those you love. Her daughter's grip tightened. What do they mean by they must unbroken? The shadows began to swell, creeping toward them, dark tendrils of despair unfurling like hungry serpents. Sarah could feel them thrumming with wicked anticipation. All the suffering will be unleashed if you do, the haunting tone warned. Each rule broken brings another soul into the void. What do you want from us? Sarah shouted, feeling the heat of rising dread. The shadows coiled tighter, a suffocating mass. Obey or become one with them. The shadows lunged forward, sweeping across the room with a terrible hunger. Run! Sarah grabbed her daughter, instinct triumphing over fear as she dashed toward the flickering light, thinking it must lead to a way out. But the walls dissolved into a swirling darkness, pulling them further into despair. With every step, they felt the darkness clawing back, hungry for their resolve. "Listen!" The voice cried out as the shadows closed in. "The final and most important rule: recognize the prey." "What does that mean?" The dark figures formed one last image before the shadows swallowed them whole, a twisted silhouette of a girl. Her eyes glowed, and cold laughter echoed. "You may have escaped the prison, but now, you're the hunted." In that moment, realization crashed over Sarah. The last rule would reveal itself through unfathomable terror. What and who would they face next? The shadows closed in, suffocating and relentless. Terror slammed into Sarah as she clutched her daughter's hand tighter. Time morphed around them as the air thickened, swirling with hushed whispers of the damned. "It's not just us," she muttered, dawning horror setting in. The shadows whispered names, faces emerging as apparitions, voices tangled in an agonizing symphony of despair. They were the ones lost before, the ones who had broken the rules. "Don't look back!" Sarah shouted, fiercely shaking her head, forcing herself to focus on the warmth of her daughter's hand. "We have to move." They dashed ahead, the flickering light urging them on like a beacon. The walls pulsed with sinister energy, shadows reaching for them, teeth gnashing in frustration as they fled toward the flickering glow. Just ahead, a massive doorway loomed, a gateway that seemed ready to swallow them whole. Behind it, they could hear the echoing cries of lost souls, their fears twisting into a cascading roar. "You must go back!" The voices yelled, a cacophony that filled the room. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Her daughter wailed, but Sarah forced a brave face, holding on to the flicker of hope that sparked within her. "Stay close." As they neared the door, Sarah slammed her palm against it, voice hoarse with desperation. "Open. Please." Nothing happened. The pulse of shadows wrapped around her, squeezing tight. With sheer will, she shouted above the noise, "I refuse to be prey." And at that moment, the door shuddered, light pouring through the cracks. It swung open bright, blinding, a radiant flood of warmth that felt like freedom. But even as they sprang toward it, a rush of shadows surged from behind, pulling at their legs like a tide searching for comfort. "No!" Sarah cried, pulling her daughter closer. As the door loomed larger, a twisted head broke through the threshold, an embodiment of grief and darkness, its eyes wide and sunken. "You cannot leave!" It howled, the voice echoing from countless lost souls. "The rules have been broken, and now you must join us." Sarah felt her heart race, galloping with raw ferocity. "Not today!" She screamed, channeling every ounce of her love and willpower. She felt the energy shift, the darkness recoiled slightly at her defiance. "Together!" she shouted, looking into her daughter's eyes, fierce determination burning within. They charged through the doorway, the surge of light crashing around them as the shadows screamed in agony. The roar of voices filled her ears as the blinding white enveloped them entirely. Light burst, shattering the agony, washing over them, driving the shadow creatures back. "Run!" she urged, guiding her daughter through, feeling the warmth wrap around them like a protective shroud. With heart pounding, they burst through the barrier, tumbling to the ground in an explosion of light. As they caught their breath, Sarah looked around. They were back outside, the air fresh and pure, sunlight warming their skin with golden rays. The prison loomed behind them, dark and sinister, but the gates were tightly closed, locked with chains forged of time and anguish. Behind those walls were the horrors they had escaped. Did we do it?" her daughter whispered, rupture of relief spilling from her eyes. "We're safe," Sarah breathed, pulling her daughter's shivering form into an embrace. But even as she held her close, unease gnawed at her heart. The prison might be behind them, but she understood they must still obey the rules. "Will it ever stop haunting us?" her daughter asked, gaze swimming toward the prison. "We will not let fear define us," Sarah insisted, gripping her daughter's shoulders, a fierce light breaking through her heart. "Remember this moment, the love that protected us. We broke the chains together, and they have no hold on us anymore. As they walked away, the sun shone brightly above, piercing through the shadows around them. A sense of release washed away the remnants of horror, though a part of her would always feel the chill of the prison's darkness. From that day forth, Sarah pledged to share the story of the 7 rules, to teach others that they could confront their fears without succumbing to them. The prison of shadows no longer loomed over them, instead, it stood as a reminder of their triumph. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, armed with the courage ignited within them, a force fierce and unbreakable. The echoes of the prison may whisper in the distance, but they would remain strong, bound by an unshakable love and the unwavering hope that thrived even in the darkest of days. Their journey wasn't just about survival, it was about breaking free, finding power in the rules they chose, to embrace a legacy they would pass forward, reminding all that together, light can always conquer darkness. Now, listeners, this is where the real journey begins. Hear the calls of the brave and the pure. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and grow this community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who have to see how this story unfolds. Your support is everything. Only true fans grasp the power of connection in this series. Join us as we explore more tales of courage and chaos.